Sometimes I think it didn't really start the night Laura disappeared. It began the moment I first saw her reflection. Not her, but her ghost in a cafe window, like someone had shown me a woman already preparing to vanish. Now I wake up in a house that still smells like her, the coffee cup with her lipstick print, the mirror smudged with words I've tried to wipe away 100 times. And every time I do, they return. Don't look for me. I'm sorry. Since then I've learned, when a woman leaves a message in the mirror, she isn't just walking away. She's calling you into her reflection, into the place where truth looks different. I'm not the hero of this story. I'm just a man who once ignored a warning. And now, everything I see, everything I hear, everything that's left of Laura, is her reflection inside me. The morning light slid through the blinds like a blade, cutting the room in half. I woke to the sound of silence, the kind that hums inside your skull when something isn't right. The other side of the bed was cold. Laura sighed. The indentation on the pillow still there, the faint scent of her shampoo lingering in the air, that soft vanilla she used to wear because she said it made her feel like home. But she wasn't here. At first, I thought she'd gone for a run. Or maybe out to clear her head after last night. The argument still played on a loop in my mind. The sharp words, the slammed door, the look in her eyes that didn't match her voice. But even through anger, she never left without her phone. When I swung my legs out of bed, my foot brushed against something cold, her bracelet. The one I bought her on our second anniversary, the one she swore never to take off. It lay on the floor like a tiny piece of evidence. The house felt wrong. The air was still heavy. I walked down the hall and stopped at the bathroom door, half open. Inside, the mirror was fogged, as if someone had showered not long ago. My reflection stared back at me, unshaven, confused, hungover from emotion. And then I saw it, written in red lipstick across the glass. Don't look for me. I'm sorry. The words glowed under the weak morning light, streaked slightly where moisture had bled into the color. It was her handwriting, loopy, feminine, deliberate. My first instinct was disbelief. Then anger. Then something I couldn't name, a crawling dread that started at the base of my spine. I pressed my fingers against the message. The lipstick smudged. Still fresh. She couldn't have been gone long. The coffee machine gurgled faintly when I walked into the kitchen. The pot was half full. Steam still rose from her mug. She'd poured it, taken one sip maybe, and left. Her purse was gone, but her phone sat on the counter, screen dark. I unlocked it easily. She never used a passcode. No new messages. No calls. Just a note in her calendar for today. Finished draft. Talk to Ethan. Talk about what? Outside. The morning had turned gray, the kind of weather that blurred edges and made everything look uncertain. The front door hung slightly ajar, as if she'd left in a hurry. A gust of cold wind crept in, carrying the scent of rain and pine. I stepped outside, barefoot on the porch. The neighborhood was quiet. The mailman hadn't come yet. Laura's car was still in the driveway. My mind scrambled for logic. Maybe she'd gone for a walk. Maybe she called someone for a ride. But the thought didn't fit with the lipstick message, or the unease coiling in my gut. Back inside, I moved through the house like an investigator in my own crime scene. In the trash bin, beside the desk, something caught my eye, a torn piece of paper. I fished it out, smoothing it with trembling hands. It was a train ticket stub. Portland. No date. Just a destination. I sat on the edge of the couch, the ticket trembling between my fingers. The coffee still warm, the door open, the missing purse. None of it made sense. Laura hated trains. She said they made her feel trapped. I thought about calling her mother, or the police, or maybe Ryan, my brother, the only one who ever told me Laura wasn't as calm as she seemed. But I didn't. Not yet. Because some part of me wasn't ready to make it real. Instead, I went to her desk. Papers scattered, her laptop open. The cursor blinked on a blank document titled Chapter 8, The Lie. She'd been writing her new novel late into the night. I almost smiled at the irony before something darker took over, a sense that maybe the story she was writing had spilled into our lives. The silence in the house grew thicker. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a whisper. I found myself pacing, searching for signs of her, perfume in the air, hair on the sink, lipstick stain on the rim of her cup. Small ghosts of a woman who'd vanished between breaths. When I finally sank onto the couch, the words on the mirror replayed in my mind over and over. Don't look for me. I'm sorry. The words weren't just an apology. They were a warning. And yet, even as I tried to convince myself to leave it, to respect what she wanted, I couldn't stop seeing her face from last night. The flash of tears she tried to hide, the way her hand trembled when she touched my arm. That wasn't a woman planning to leave. That was a woman afraid of something. Or someone. I stood again, heart pounding. If she wanted me not to look for her, it meant she knew I would. And she was right. Because I couldn't sit still while the bed was empty, the coffee still warm, and the words bled red across my mirror. I couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't left me. Not really. Something had taken her. Or she'd run from something I didn't yet understand. The air shifted as thunder rolled in the distance. The lights flickered once, and the silence deepened. That's when I decided, no matter what the note said, I would look for her, even if what I found wasn't Laura anymore. The house didn't sound like itself. The beams usually clicked, pipes sighed. The fridge hummed low like a cat. Today, everything held its breath, as if the rooms were trying not to be noticed. I moved through it with my phone in hand, cold coffee burning a path down my throat, the lipstick words still in my head like a cut you can't stop worrying. I started calling. First Mira, Laura's editor, the one whose messages were half pep talk, half threat. She didn't turn in pages, Mira said, voice sanded by cigarettes. But she texted yesterday. Tonight, finish. Tomorrow, breathe. No, she hadn't heard from Laura. No, she didn't know about Portland. If she's pulling a disappearing act, tell her I'm not amused, she added softer. Tell her I'm worried. I called friends in an order that wasn't logical, so much as gravitational. No one knew anything. A couple asked if we'd fought again. I said no before the word had time to find its truth. When I called her mother, the line rang long enough for me to see the old bay house, paint peeling, gulls like torn paper. Ethan, she said, wary and warm. I spilled too many details. Purse gone, phone here, coffee hot, door open. She went quiet. Maybe she needed space, she said. You can be intense. The word landed gently, set between us like china. The police station smelled like wet wool and old paper. I brought the torn ticket, a photo of the mirror, the phone she'd left behind. Detective Coleman came down with a paper cup and the tired grace of someone who has seen most human arrangements. After I unspooled my morning, he said, voluntary disappearance. Adults are allowed to leave. Give it 48 hours. He nodded at the lipstick message as if it were a notarized letter. 48 hours was a continent. On the drive home, Laura's phone chimed. Water plants. I wanted to throw it into the gray river. Instead, I carried it inside like an urn and sat at her desk because I didn't know what else to do. Laura named her folders like chapters from a different life. Beaches, mothers, red houses. One had a lock icon. In a notes file beside it, key, red corridor. I typed it. The folder opened like a held breath. Inside were drafts, fragments, voice memos. The first began with her clearing her throat, that small human sound that undid me. If you're listening, she said, voice low and near, it means I couldn't say it out loud. The phrase is red corridor. Don't pretend you don't understand where that points. She exhaled. I felt it as if she stood behind me. Red corridor. Not just a code, a direction. A hallway, a gallery, a warning. I called Coleman back, told him about the folder and the memo. He buckled my name around me like a seatbelt. Mr. Hale, I understand this is frightening. But she left a note, and she has a history of creative gestures. Let's wait. I hung up, and the quiet changed from empty to occupied. I walked the hall where the runner rug held a faint smear I traced with my toe. Had it been there yesterday? The past rearranged itself under my feet. Thunder muscled the afternoon into a low metallic blue. I poured bourbon and let memory uncoil in spite of me. In July, she wore a black dress, so simple it made my hands ache. Street heat climbed our legs as we walked home. Sweat gathered at the small of her back. When I pressed my palm there, she leaned in, a silent yes that traveled my spine. On the kitchen counter, she tasted like salt and rain. She whispered that word, sex, as if it were private property, a house we owned between our teeth. Every touch was declarative, every breath an answer. The memory left a sulfur aftertaste. I set down the glass hard enough to ring the table. Back at the screen, I searched for a seam. In one draft, she'd written the same sentence until the page looked haunted. Fear is a map. Maps lie by omission, I thought, those blank spaces that pretend nothing dangerous lives there. By late afternoon, the light thinned to pewter. I called Mira again. If she wanted theater, I said, she'd have taken her phone. Then this is a closed stage, Mira said. Closed stages are for rituals or exits. We listened to each other breathe. When I hung up, I let the real question surface. Not where she went or why, but who I had been in that kitchen. Someone who stood too close, spoke too sharply, wanted to win more than he wanted peace. Is that a man you flee, even if he never raises a hand? I pressed my forehead to the window until it took my heat. The answer didn't arrive. Only the house did, ushering evening in on quiet feet. At dusk, I wiped the lipstick from the mirror with the flat of my palm. The red smeared and thinned, became a foggy wound. Underneath, my face returned, vague as a suspect sketch. The words had said, "Don't look for me." But the folder had said "Red Corridor," and the way she'd said, "If you're listening," hadn't sounded like a plea for silence. It sounded like a fuse lit with care, a path painted in warning colors. 48 hours ticked somewhere I couldn't hear. I lay down without undressing and watched the plaster patterns gather into a hallway I didn't recognize, long, narrow, red. At the far end, a door waited. In the morning, I understood I would go find it. When Ryan arrived, he didn't knock. He never did. The door creaked open, and his voice cut through the silence like it owned the space. "Jesus, Ethan, you look like hell." He stood there in his leather jacket, rain dripping from his hair, that infuriating calm painted across his face. The kind of calm that made you want to throw something just to see if it would crack. "I called you," he said, setting down a paper bag. "You didn't answer. So I figured something's wrong." I wanted to tell him to leave, that this wasn't his mess to walk into. But part of me was relieved. The quiet had started to feel alive. "She's gone," I said simply. He didn't ask who. He didn't need to. Ryan moved through the house the way a detective would, eyes scanning, hands brushing over objects he had no right to touch. He looked at the mirror in the bathroom and whistled low. "Classic Laura," he muttered. "Always knew how to make an exit dramatic." "Don't," I said sharply. He turned toward me, a flicker of something behind his eyes, pity, maybe, or guilt. "Hey, I'm not saying she's wrong. Just, she's unpredictable. You know that better than anyone." I ignored him and moved to the kitchen, where the coffee had long gone cold. He followed, leaning against the counter like he belonged there. "Cops treating it as voluntary disappearance," I said. "They won't do anything for 48 hours. He nodded slowly, gaze wandering around the room. 48 hours is enough to start a new life. There was a hint of satisfaction in his tone, and it made my skin crawl. I poured the rest of the coffee down the sink, the sound harsh in the quiet. "She didn't take her phone," I said, "or her car. Just her purse." Ryan's brow furrowed, not confusion, more calculation. "You checked the trains?" "Buses." "Found a ticket. Portland." He smirked. "Romantic. You two always talked about moving there." I didn't answer. My eyes caught something near his wrist, a thin elastic loop, bright red. A scrunchie. Laura's scrunchie. I stared at it for a heartbeat too long before he noticed. "What?" he said, following my gaze. "This? Oh, it's probably one of Myra's. She was in my car last week." I said nothing, just nodded. But inside, something cracked. Ryan had a habit of collecting other people's things. Trinkets, memories, affections. It was part of his charm and his danger. When he left the kitchen to take a call, I moved to the hallway. The hum of his voice was low, conspiratorial. "Yeah, "I'm here now," he said. "No, he doesn't know. Keep it quiet." Then silence. I should have confronted him right there. Should have demanded the truth about that scrunchie, that tone, that secret call. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I waited until nightfall. When he finally left, with a pat on my shoulder and that same calm smile, I locked the door and checked the home security system. 6 missing hours. The footage from last night, gone. Between midnight and 6 a.m., the screen went black. No motion, no data, no trace. It was as if the cameras had been blindfolded. I stared at the monitor, pulse pounding in my ears. The realization came slowly, sickeningly. Ryan had the access code. He'd helped install the system. In the half-dark, I poured another drink and tried to breathe. The bourbon burned, but not enough to dull the sense that something had gone terribly, precisely wrong. Laura's absence wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Every detail, the lipstick, the coffee, the open door, felt arranged. Designed to make sense and nonsense at the same time. When I finally went upstairs, the scent of her perfume still lingered on the sheets. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Ryan. About the scrunchie. About the way Laura had flinched the last time his name came up. It wasn't just fear. It was recognition. The storm outside deepened. Lightning strobed across the room, painting everything in flashes of white and shadow. My mind kept replaying the corrupted footage, the missing hours, Ryan's too casual tone. At 3 a.m., I woke from a half-sleep, drenched in sweat. The mirror across the room caught the dim light from the street. For a moment, it looked like someone was standing behind me. I turned. No one there. Just the echo of my own heartbeat. But the air smelled faintly of her perfume again, stronger now, as if she had just passed through the doorway. And for the first time, I wondered if Laura had ever truly left this house, or if she'd been trying to escape something much closer than I thought. Morning arrived like a verdict, gray and without appeal. I dressed in yesterday's clothes, as if fabric could lie for me. The house watched me go, board stiff, windows unblinking. I pocketed Laura's phone, the torn ticket, and a coil of resolve I didn't trust. It tasted like rage, like need. Like sex without tenderness, blunt and directionless. I started where she'd last touched the world. In the kitchen, the coffee ring had dried into a bruised halo. The scent of her vanilla shampoo clung to the air, delicate and disobedient. I ran my finger along the marble counter, the one she insisted on despite the cost, and froze. A deep gouge scored the surface, thin and deliberate, a pale scar curving into a letter. Not quite straight, not quite curved. An R. I stared until the letter became a mouth. Ryan. Or red. Or run. The word burned behind my teeth. I took a photo, then pressed my thumb into the groove as if pressure could wring a memory from stone. Had she carved it? Or had someone else left his initial like a claim? The mark wasn't frantic, it was patient. I searched the rooms again, slower now, letting my eyes adjust to forensic light. A pearl gray button beneath the couch, unfamiliar. A bobby pin beneath the bed that meant everything and nothing. Only absence, perfectly arranged. By noon, I drove to the gas station 2 miles down, the one with brittle sunlight and a cashier who never looked up. The place smelled like hot rubber and lottery dust. I asked for last night's footage and kept my voice even. The manager, a man with ship rope veins in his hands, shrugged. "Police come, they can ask," he said. Money is a faster badge. I laid down enough for his boredom to soften into curiosity, and a minute later I stood in a storage room amid blue screens and stacks of paper towels while a monitor crawled out of sleep. There she was, or the shape of her. A woman in a red scarf at 5:42 a.m., moving like a decision. Black coat, head down. She stepped past pump 4 and climbed onto a bus idling by the curb. Cash to the driver. Doors closing like teeth. I leaned closer to the screen. The manager shifted. "You know her?" he asked, already certain. I nodded. "Print stills." He could. The printer coughed a pair of pale ghosts into my hands. Laura, or someone curated to look like her, had left the camera little to drink. The scarf felt too bold, the posture too careful. I called Coleman. He answered on the first ring. You at the house? No. Quick Mart on Alder. I've got footage. His size sounded like paperwork growing legs. I'll send a unit. Stay put. Staying put lasted as long as it took for the bus to pull away on the screen again. I stepped outside into grit-bitter air. The asphalt held the heat of a sun that hadn't bothered to arrive. A red thread lay by the curb, silky and small. I picked it up. It clung to my finger like a whisper. Evidence or detritus? I pocketed it anyway. Back home, 2 officers tramped through the hall with careful boots and careful eyes. Polite in the way of people who don't expect to find anything they can use. Coleman arrived later, jacket unbuttoned, tie chewing its knot. He listened, glanced at the stills, then walked the rooms with the weary grace of a priest. He stopped at the gouge, bent, and grunted. Could be a dropped pan, he said. Could be a dropped name, I didn't say. A technician swabbed a faint rust-colored smear near the baseboard and sealed the Q-tip like a secret. Blood, he muttered. The word made the room shrink. My mouth tasted like a battery. Hours later, Coleman called from the curb. Dog, he said. Blood's canine. Somebody wanted us to think abduction. Somebody wanted us to waste time. Somebody, I echoed, and watched my breath fog and clear, as if I could see the lie leaving me in intervals. In the window, I caught my reflection split by rain. A man turned into a question. Night fell with the wet sound of a curtain being dragged. I poured water, then whiskey, then nothing. I played the clip until the pixels felt intimate. The bus swallowed her. The street returned to itself. It looked less like departure than ritual. A motion performed because it had been rehearsed. I tried to picture Laura carving an R into the counter, tying a red scarf, leaving a red thread. But I kept seeing Ryan's wrist, that bright band smirking at his pulse. I texted him the stills. He answered with a single word, shit. Then another, you okay? His care felt like a glove with a hole in it. I lay on the couch and let memory trespass. The last week she'd been warmer in the mornings, kissing the underside of my jaw, slipping her hand beneath my t-shirt, breath landing on my throat like a promise. A mercy of intimacy that felt like a bribe. When I tried to deepen it, she'd pull back and laugh softly, pupils wide with charge, then bite my lower lip until pain marched up my spine. Patience, she'd whisper, mouth a fraction for mine. Earn it. I would have. I always would have. One can be a leash or a knife. At midnight, the house exhaled. The wind rose, dragging rain across the siding. I stood in the kitchen and pressed my thumb into the carved letter again. It fit too well. The groove held the heat of my skin. If it was an R, it wasn't a message for me alone. A provocation, a signature, a dare. The front door rattled. I moved to it and held still. On the porch, the night was a slick river. Across the street, a neighbor's TV painted the curtains blue. Somewhere, a dog barked 3 times and quit. I opened Laura's phone and the folder again. Red corridor. If this was her corridor, it was meant to be walked. If it was his, it was meant to be sprung. I set an alarm for 4 and slept for an hour that tasted like coins. When the bell nicked me awake, I dressed in dark clothes and laced my shoes too tight. The mirror was clean. My face was not. I pocketed the stills, the thread, the phone. The house didn't try to stop me. On the way out, I touched the counter one more time. R, I said to the empty room. I see you. The rain took the words and made them quieter. Somewhere a bus hissed its doors open. I followed the sound. The world outside had gone pale by the time I woke again. Washed out gray sky, drizzle painting the windows like condensation on a confession. I hadn't slept, not really. My mind replayed Ryan's face, that smooth indifference when he saw the lipstick words on the mirror. It didn't fit. None of it did. The house no longer felt empty. It felt tampered with. Every sound seemed rehearsed. The ticking of the clock, the groan of the pipes, all of it pulsed with a rhythm too deliberate, like someone was still here, hiding in the walls. I sat at Laura's desk again, the faint trace of her perfume haunting the air. The computer was still open to her drafts folder. Fear is a map she had written again and again, and I kept wondering, if fear was her map, where had it led her? The answer came unexpectedly. Scrolling through her files, I found a folder named archive_2024. Inside, hundreds of photos, notes, and screenshots. Most were harmless, outlines, article drafts, voice memos. But one image stopped me cold. A photo from 2 weeks ago, a group of people at a karaoke bar. Glasses raised. Neon lights washing faces in red and blue. And there, a hand resting on someone's thigh. Laura's hand. The same bracelet I'd bought her. The same one that had been missing from her wrist the morning she disappeared. The caption from the post read, "Friday chaos with the crew. At Ryan_Hale makes a killer duet partner." My chest tightened. The hand was hers, delicate fingers, the small scar from a camping trip. And the man beside her, Ryan. My brother. I scrolled faster, every swipe a small betrayal. They'd been together that night. I checked the metadata. The picture was posted by a friend of Ryan's. I zoomed in. Laura was laughing. Not the forced smile she'd worn around me lately, but a real one. My hand trembled as I picked up my phone. Before I could think, I dialed Ryan. He answered on the third ring, his voice lazy, as if nothing was wrong. "Ethan, what's up? You were with Laura 2 weeks ago?" He paused. "At karaoke, yeah. It was a group thing." "Why? Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed. "Because it didn't matter. She wanted to blow off steam. You were working late, remember?" "I remember," I said. "But what I don't remember is her touching your thigh." Silence. Then a low laugh that wasn't denial. "You're seeing ghosts, brother." I hung up. My heart hammered, so loud it felt like the walls could hear it. That night, the phone rang. Once, twice, then silence. The caller ID blocked. I almost didn't answer. But something in me, that same dread-laced instinct that had kept me awake, pressed accept. A distorted voice came through. Male, maybe. The sound was grainy, synthetic. "Don't trust him." "Who is this?" I demanded. Static. Then, "He's not helping you. He's erasing her." The line went dead. I called back, no answer. I replayed the message 3 times, each repetition colder than the last. "He's erasing her." My hands shook as I searched Laura's phone again. Text logs, emails, hidden folders. That's when I found it, buried deep in her drafts, a second email account tied to her name. The inbox was nearly empty. But in the sent folder, one message glowed like a live wire. To ardahale214@protonmail.com. Subject, lease confirmation. Body, keep it under your name. I'll move in once it's ready. Don't tell him. Attached was a PDF, a rental agreement. An apartment. Pine Street. Unit 214. Ryan's name. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The walls leaned in. The air thickened until my thoughts began to spin, fragmenting between fury and disbelief. Had they planned this? Was this whole disappearance a cover for their affair? Or had something gone wrong between them? Something dark enough to drive her into hiding? My mind raced back to the night before she vanished, her trembling hands, the way she touched my cheek before whispering, "You'll understand one day." Understand what? That she'd chosen him? That she'd been running from me? I opened a bottle of wine she'd left half-finished and drank straight from it, staring at her handwriting still faintly visible on the mirror upstairs. "Don't look for me." Too late. Because now, the question wasn't whether she'd left me. It was whether Ryan had made sure she couldn't come back. Outside, the rain had stopped. The silence pressed against the glass, heavy and absolute. I reached for my keys. The apartment lease burned in my mind. Pine Street, Unit 214. I would find it. Whatever secrets Ryan was hiding, whatever Laura had feared, it all pointed there. And if my brother was lying to me, if he'd touched her, hurt her, taken her, then this wouldn't end with questions. It would end with answers. And blood. I don't sleep. I orbit the words like a planet chained to a dark sun. Red corridor. By dawn, the phrase has a street address in my head, the way certain rumors wear architecture. Seattle has a habit of hiding its secrets in plain view. A whiskey bar behind a butcher's freezer, a poker room under a laundromat. Art likes to pretend it's above crime. Crime likes to pretend it's art. Red corridor could be both. A search pulls up whispers, not listings. Invite-only shows. Performance pieces that flirt with danger until it winks back. Photos are red-smeared and anonymous. All cheekbones and shadow. A tag repeats. RC//tunnel. In a forum comment, someone jokes. Follow the red exit signs, then ignore them. It sounds like instructions for a fire drill designed by a sadist. The rain rides shotgun as I drive south. Near the shipyards, I find a warehouse with a single stenciled that the color of arterial blood. A woman at the door, shaved head, silver hoop in her brow, looks me up and down like she's fitting me for an alibi. I say, I'm here for corridor. She studies my face the way Laura used to study a sentence, searching for the word that ruins it. Then she keys the lock and lets me slip into heat and dimness. The gallery is not a room. It's a wound. A long, narrow hallway bathed in red gel light. Walls hung with canvases that look like maps of fever. People move through it as if wading in syrup. Slow, suggestive. Careful not to touch anything they haven't already paid for. Music pulses at rib frequency. Somewhere, water runs, or the idea of water does. I walk, shoulders grazing strangers, breath mixing with perfume and paint. Sensation sharpens. A woman in a velvet dress passes close enough that her hair whispers over my jaw. For a second my body betrays me, remembering Laura's mouth at my throat, the soft vow of her breath before sex. Want is a muscle memory, grief, it's lactic acid. I steady myself on the wall and keep going. At the far end, a door marks staff and, beside it, a restroom with a red X instead of a gender icon. I slip inside. Concrete floor. One flickering tube light. A mirror with someone's lipstick confession smeared into anonymity. My hands find habits. Check the stall hinges, the toilet tanks, behind the paper dispenser. Nothing. Then I notice the vent above the trash can. 2 screws missing, 2 barely hanging on. I drag the trash can under the vent and climb, palm to filthy tile, heart to hammer. The grate gives with a small sigh. I reach into darkness and feel dust, then plastic. A small thumb drive taped to the duct with blue painter's tape. Next to it, a micro SIM in a plastic sleeve no bigger than a fingernail moon. Laura's love of neatness lives in this tiny geometry. She prepared this space the way she prepped a scene, hiding meaning under ordinary air. I pocket both and replace the grate. When I step back into the hallway, the music swells, and the red looks closer to wet. The door woman watches me. Fear isn't the right word for what sharpens her features, more like recognition that I've crossed from viewer into participant. She says nothing. Neither do I. A pact of silence made at the price of other people's noise. Outside, the rain has become a fine spray that coats the lungs. In the car, I slot the SIM into a cheap burner Laura, kept buried in a drawer of orphan chargers and old travel plugs. The phone wakes like an animal touched gently. One message waits, a single blank thread titled Corridor. It contains an address, not to a place, but to a file, a hash string, devotional in its ugliness. There's a second line. If you made it here, you know why. I drive home with a thumb drive burning my pocket like a principled sin. Every light seems too long. The house greets me with the same important quiet. I lock the door, draw the curtains, and plug the drive into Laura's laptop. A folder blooms. One file, witness.mov. The video opens on darkness. Then Laura's face appears, lit by the kind of light that chooses what to forgive. She's too close to the camera, pupils wide, hair pulled back with the blue clip she wore when she needed both hands. She looks like work, like resolve, and like fear disguised as courtesy. If you're seeing this, she says, it means the mirror message did its job. A half smile ghosts her mouth. I'm tired of being afraid. The sentence lifts something in me and drops it. She breathes. I can hear the vent hiss wherever she recorded. A bathroom? A garage? Ethan, she says, and my name feels illegal on her lips. I thought I could fix it by keeping separate lives, but separation just made more places to hide. If I disappear, ask him about Pine Street, number 214. Him. The word lands like a shiver and a verdict. Not them. Him. She glances off camera, then back. I left pieces. Corridor. The bus. Don't trust what looks like rescue. Her throat moves. She stares hard into the lens, as if trying to see through it. I didn't leave because of love. I left because fear eats it. And because I might be useful to someone who doesn't deserve my silence anymore. A noise in the recording, a door maybe, or a step, turns her eyes bright with decision. If this ends the way I think it will, I'm sorry. Not for leaving, for how I stayed. She leans closer, so close that pores become landscape. Whatever you think you know about Ryan, ask better questions. The screen goes black. For a moment I watch my own warped reflection in the glass, a man held together by parentheses, anger and need. Then the drive blinks once, like a pulse, and goes still. I sit without moving until the house's small sounds return. The tick, the hum, the faint outside hiss. The laptop fan breathes warm against my wrists, a domestic animal trying to comfort. In the mirror over the mantel, my face looks both older and less finished. He. Pine Street. 214. Ask better questions. About what? The scrunchie? The karaoke bar? The 6 blind hours on my own cameras? The body wants simple answers. It asks for skin, for contact, for sex to cauterize the rawness. The mind wants geometry. The heart wants revision. None of them are getting what they want. I rewind the video and watch it again with a different hunger. Laura isn't acting. She never looked at me like that unless the cup of truth was in her hand and she was about to drink. She anticipated Ryan's version, maybe even mine. She knew the police would call it voluntary. She knew I would ignore the plea in lipstick and go anyway. She threaded the corridor with red precisely because she hoped I'd follow. But who was she running from? Ryan is the obvious answer. Obvious answers don't leave drives and vents. The burner phone buzzes once. A number I don't know, a single text. 214 is not an address. It's a door. Then the thread deletes itself. The phone returns to blankness, as if embarrassed by what it said. I think of the gouge on the counter, a letter like a hook. Of the bus doors closing. Of the dog blood theater. Of the stills from the gas station. A red scarf, a posture like a script. A door, not a place. So where? In the living room. The house settles its bones with soft pops. I open the home security app and comb the dead band between midnight and 6, the black strip of time someone made on purpose. On the timeline side are small gray ticks, system pings, test packets, diagnostics. At 2:14 a.m., a single white that interrupts the quiet like a mote in a dead eye. A door, not an address. A time, not a place. I feel it then. The corridor isn't somewhere you go. It's a route you're already walking. Laura left me a map in the color of emergency. She's not hiding from love or even guilt. She's hiding from a man who turns absence into proof and proof into smoke. Him. Ask him about Pine Street, number 214. Ask him at 2:14 a.m. I close the laptop and the room goes red in the back of my eyes. The rain lets up. The night comes forward, attentive. As if we're rehearsing the scene it will soon be asked to stage. I set the alarm for 1:58 and rest on the couch with my shoes on, the burner on my chest like a small live animal. When I finally close my eyes, I see Laura leaning toward the lens, and behind her, as the camera tries to adjust, the faintest smear of red along a tiled wall. A corridor. A door. I wait for the dark to open. The city looked drained, all its veins showing. I followed Pine Street east until the buildings began to hunch closer together, old bricks sweating under the damp. The rain had thinned to a nervous drizzle, but the sky still looked heavy enough to collapse. The apartment building stood at the far corner, beige concrete, small balconies like clenched fists. No lights in the windows, no sound from the street. A metal number 214 was bolted crooked above the door, its paint chipped like a wound that refused to heal. The lock was old, easy. I'd broken into my own house once when I forgot my keys. It felt the same, like crossing a line drawn by memory. Inside, The air was stale but faintly perfumed, Laura's perfume. The same warm note of vanilla and rain. My pulse tripped. The place was spotless. Too spotless. A couch, a coffee table, a few dishes stacked neatly by the sink. The kind of order that isn't lived in, it's staged. But I could feel her in the details. A strand of hair caught on the pillow, the faint imprint of a coffee mug on the counter, the echo of her presence vibrating beneath the quiet. And then, the perfume. Stronger here, near the window. I closed my eyes and saw her standing there, backlit by the gray light, her shoulders bare, one hand holding the curtain. My body remembered before my mind did, the warmth of her neck beneath my lips, her soft intake of breath when she tilted her head back. But this wasn't nostalgia. It was evidence. On the dresser sat a small silver hairpin. I picked it up carefully, afraid it might vanish if I breathed too hard. The same pin she wore at her last book launch, the night Ryan wouldn't stop touching her arm. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. You shouldn't be there. I froze. Looked around. No one. Another message. He's coming. I moved to the door, but before I could decide whether to leave, the knob turned. Ryan stepped inside, rain dripping from his jacket, his expression unreadable. Well, he said softly, you always did have timing issues. For a long second, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt alive, charged, not just with anger, but something older, heavier. Why are you here? I asked. I could ask you the same thing. He took off his gloves and tossed them on the counter. Looking for Laura? My jaw tightened. You knew about this place. He nodded. Of course I did. I helped her rent it. The words dropped like stones. She was scared, Ethan, he said, voice low. You think you were the only one hurting? You pushed her too far. You needed to control everything, what she wrote, who she saw, even how she breathed. Bullshit, I snapped. She told you that? She didn't have to. I saw it. He stepped closer, eyes cold, but his mouth, that slight smirk, betrayed something else. Guilt, maybe. Or pleasure. She came to me because she needed a way out. I laughed, sharp and humorless. And you offered her your bed as a safe house, didn't you? He didn't deny it. His silence was enough. Was it part of the plan? I asked. The lipstick, the fake blood, the missing footage, all of it. Ryan's jaw twitched. You think I staged your vanishing? Christ, Ethan, she wanted to disappear. She begged me to help. I stepped closer, close enough to smell the rain on his skin, the faint trace of Laura's perfume clinging to him, like an accusation. She trusted you, I said quietly. And you fucked her. His eyes flickered, guilt again or pride. And that was when I saw it. The faint red mark on his wrist, where a scrunchie had once been. He followed my gaze and tucked his hand into his pocket. She wasn't yours to lose, brother. I might have hit him if something hadn't caught my eye, a half-open closet door behind him. I brushed past him and yanked it open. Inside sat a small blue suitcase. Her suitcase. I unzipped it. Clothes. Makeup. A passport with a different name, Lena Moore. And a bus ticket, unused. Destination, Portland. Departure date, the day after she disappeared. Ryan's voice came from behind me, calm but distant. She was supposed to leave the next morning. I was going to drive her to the station, but she never showed. I turned. You expect me to believe that? I don't care what you believe, he said, running a hand through his hair. All I know is she was scared, not of me, not even of leaving you. Something else. Something she wouldn't name. I stared at him. Then why the hell did you lie about not seeing her? He exhaled slowly. Because she asked me to. For a moment, the only sound was the rain tapping the window. Ryan stepped closer, eyes steady. Whatever you think this is, affair, betrayal, revenge, it's not. She was running from something neither of us understands. I wanted to believe him, but I kept seeing her hand on his thigh, her laugh in that photo, the mark on his wrist. The truth felt like a performance, convincing but rehearsed. He left after a few minutes, saying he'd call if he found anything. I watched him walk down the steps, the rain swallowing his figure. When I turned back to the room, the silence hit harder than before. I looked down at the suitcase again. Beneath the clothes taped to the lining was a small flash drive, identical to the one from the red corridor. I held it in my palm, feeling the edges bite my skin. She'd left another message. But this time, I wasn't sure whether it was for me or against me. I didn't plug the new flash drive in right away. I let it sit on my palm, the way you hold a promise you're not sure you want to keep. The apartment sighed around me, staged and sterile. Laura's scent thinning by the minute, as if even perfume knew how to flee. A suitcase, a fake passport, an unused bus ticket. The puzzle was too neat, corners clicking into place with the precision of a lie. Back home, I shut the curtains and made the house small. I left one light on in the kitchen, a cone of weak gold over the scarred counter. The letter R still held my thumbprint. I slid the drive into Laura's laptop. A single folder opened, scene_2. Inside 3 files, audio.m4, a camhall.mov, and report.pdf. I played the audio first. Her voice again, closer than skin. If you found Pine Street, you've already seen what I kept for leaving. I didn't go. A breath. I couldn't. Don't mistake that for love. It was fear doing an imitation. A small laugh, humorless. He said he could keep me safe. He said he could make you look like the knife. Maybe he already has. He. The pronoun walked the room in someone else's shoes. I opened camhall.mov. Grainy footage of our downstairs hallway at 1:57 a.m., an angle my system doesn't have. A figure enters frame at 2:13. Hood up, shoulders compact. The camera stutters. At 2:14, the screen goes black. When the image returns, the front door stands open a thumb's width, and the red scarf lies like a shed skin on the floor. The timestamp jumps 6 hours. Proof, but of what? That someone rehearsed my house like a stage. I clicked report.pdf. Not hers. A police document, scanned crooked, detailing a domestic conflict filed 2 months ago. Names redacted. Narrative thin. Raised voices, neighbors concerned, no visible injuries. Complainant requests record only. The address line was our street. I printed it and watched the page tremble out like a confession no one would sign. Coleman needed to see this. Whether he believed it was another matter. I drove to the precinct because the house had grown teeth. The lobby smelled of wet wool and worn coffee. Coleman met me in a side room with a table too shiny for truth. I slid the flash drive across. He didn't touch it yet. I told him about the hallway video, the report, Laura's voice saying a man promised safety and a frame. I kept Ryan's name in my mouth like something that might detonate if I bit down. He said we did get a report 2 months back. His eyes softened, then braced. No names were locked. The complainant asked for documentation only. He tapped the printed scan, then looked at me. You both were arguing more lately? I argued, I said. She and I. She and my brother. Look, he said, gently practical. Stage scenes aren't unusual when someone needs clean exits. The scarf, the non-human blood, those point to planning, not harm. It may be theater to protect her while she cooperates in something bigger. Cooperates with who? I asked. Not my case to say. He paused. Bring me the drive. I'll log it. But if I do, you don't keep copies and you stop running its shadows. I hesitated, then surrendered the plastic and the illusion that I controlled anything. On the way out, he said, Ethan, if you're asking yourself whether you scared her, ask it honestly and let the answer be complicated. The rain found a new rhythm by the time I parked at home. I stood in the doorway too long, listening to the house decide what kind of silence to be. Upstairs, on a shelf I never touch, sat the little black recorder Laura used to capture lines people didn't mean to say. She called it her moth jar. I clicked play. Fuzz, then voices, ours. A door. Laura, not now, please. Me, lower than I remember. I'm trying to talk to you. Ryan, faint, from another room or a phone. God, which? You're escalating it. A pause. Laura again, small as a trapped flame. I'm scared when you two start arguing. The clip ended with the flat clap of a stopped heart. I stood very still, anger turning obedient on its leash. The recorder made a second sound, another track auto-cued. Note to self, she whispered. Fear is a map and a mirror. If they look at each other long enough, they start agreeing. Downstairs, the kitchen window showed my face in the black glass, the outline of a man who loved, who threatened without meaning to, who missed the door as it opened right in front of him. I wanted the truth clean. The truth is never sober. The burner buzzed. 214 tonight. Watch the north wall. I put on a jacket that didn't feel like mine. At 2:07 a.m., I turned off every light and sat in the hall with the recorder in my pocket like a second conscience. The house settled. The refrigerator clicked to sleep. Rain thinned to hush. At 2:13, I heard the sound I had missed before, a gentle slide like skin on paint. The north wall air returned. A square vent level with my knee shifted inward. A magnet gave, a panel eased, and a hand in a black nitrile glove reached out as delicately as a doctor hunting for a vein. The glove held a flash drive. It set the drive on the floor, withdrew, and the panel sealed itself with a soft kiss of metal. No footsteps, just the cool smell of ductwork. I didn't move. I let the minute complete itself. At 2:14 exactly, the panel nudged again, this time offering a red thread, the same silk as the one from the gas station. I picked up both offerings when the hall clock clicked to 2:15 and the house exhaled. In the kitchen, I turned the new drive in my fingers. The puzzle fit too beautifully to be accidental. Blind cameras delivered evidence, a chorus of warnings. Staged, but to protect who and from whom? I set the drive on the counter beside the carved R and finally said it out loud. This is a trap. The word felt honest in my mouth, heavy and exact. The only decision left was whether I stepped into it as prey or as witness. Either way, the door was already open. The city never really sleeps. It just murmurs, dreams with open eyes. By the time I reached the Seattle terminal, dawn was a rumor leaking through the clouds. The place smelled of diesel, old rain, and the kind of exhaustion that isn't cured by sleep. I stood near platform 11, collar turned up, trying to look like I wasn't waiting for anyone. The burner phone buzzed once in my pocket. She'll come at 7:10. Red scarf. I didn't breathe for a moment. At 7:09, the bus from Portland exhaled against the curb. Doors hissed. Passengers spilled out, clutching bags, coats, the remnants of their nights. Then, between them, her, Laura, the red scarf. The same one from the footage, from the bus, from my dreams. Her hair was shorter now, tucked behind her ears. She looked thinner, or maybe just less alive in the way people get when they've been rehearsing their own absence too long. My feet moved before I told them to. Laura. She froze, slowly turned. Her eyes widened, not with surprise, but with recognition tinged by dread. Ethan. For a heartbeat, we were statues in fog. Then another voice broke the spell. Laura. Ryan. He came striding down the concourse, rain still slicking his hair back, a man walking through the mess he made without flinching. She turned toward him, and something between relief and panic crossed her face. I stepped closer. What the hell is this? Ryan raised his hands. You shouldn't be here. I could say the same. Laura looked between us like someone watching two versions of the same lie. Her voice shook, but it carried. Stop. Both of you. Ryan took a slow breath. We can fix this. Fix, she snapped. You think this is about fixing? You both. She broke off, the word strangled. Laura, I said softer now. Just tell me what happened. Why you left. Why the notes, the drives, the messages. She laughed, sharp, brittle. Because you wouldn't have heard me otherwise. Her eyes met mine, and the air thickened with everything unsaid. You both made me disappear, she said finally. You with control. Him with lies. Ryan's face darkened. Don't twist this, Laura. I was protecting you. From what? I asked. She turned toward him. Tell him. Tell him what you really did. The silence after that was a living thing. Ryan's jaw tensed, his hand twitching like it wanted something to hold or hit. Then footsteps behind us. Heavy, unhurried. Two men in plain clothes, Detective Coleman among them. Laura Hale, he said. She didn't answer, just closed her eyes. Ryan stepped forward. She's my... Ryan Hale, Coleman interrupted, voice flat. You're under arrest for identity theft, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. Ryan's face went pale. What the hell are you talking about? Coleman nodded at Laura. We've been looking for her since she went dark. She's part of a witness protection case tied to your company's financial division. You built the accounts she reported. Ryan's composure cracked. You can't prove that. But Laura's voice cut through him like glass. I already did. 2 agents stepped in, cuffed him. He didn't fight, didn't look at me, just at her, eyes wide with betrayal. As they led him away, the station's noise filled the void. Coleman turned to me. She came forward 2 months ago. You weren't supposed to be involved. I barely heard him. Laura stood a few feet away, arms crossed over herself, as if trying to hold in the pieces. You could have told me, I said quietly. She shook her head. I couldn't. You would have tried to fix it, to save me. And you can't save someone who doesn't want to be found. Then why leave the clues? Her lips trembled, almost a smile. Because part of me hoped you'd follow anyway. The announcement system crackled, calling passengers to gate 12. She looked toward it, then back at me. I have to go, she said. Where? Somewhere I can start over. Somewhere no one knows the name Laura Hale. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell that faint, impossible mix of rain and vanilla. Her fingers brushed mine, briefly, deliberately. Don't look for me again. Then she turned and walked toward the gate, the red scarf trailing behind her like the last line of a story I'd never finished reading. Coleman lingered beside me, hands in his coat pockets. You'll get your closure, he said. Just not the kind you wanted. But I knew better. Closure wasn't real. It was just another corridor, red endless and full of echoes. The station's noise followed me into the day like a headache that didn't care about walls. By noon, the headlines had already learned Ryan's name and were practicing it with sharp teeth. I watched him on a muted TV in a pawnshop window as he was moved from one nondescript car to another. Head down, jaw set, cuffs bright as punctuation. The crawl at the bottom stitched crimes to him like labels. Identity theft, wire fraud, extortion. A careful inventory of rot. Coleman's call came while the screen replayed Ryan's shoulders, those familiar, infuriating shoulders that had beaten me at everything that could be scored. We'll need a formal statement, he said, voice even. And you should know, there's another item for you. Something Laura left with us in case she couldn't deliver it herself. Another flash drive? A different format, he said. Old-fashioned. Come in. The precinct smelled the same. Coffee burned into ritual. Paper exhausted by carrying other people's sins. Coleman slid an evidence envelope across the desk. Inside lay a small dictaphone, cheap and stout, the kind a reporter would buy when his phone battery couldn't be trusted. A yellow post-it clung to it. For Ethan, if I go out of frame. The handwriting was Laura's, a little slanted from hurry. The task force passed it to me this morning, he said. Her condition for cooperation was that we honor her contingencies. You're a contingency. I pressed play. For a second, there was only air, the quickness of it. Then her voice, close, so close it made my knuckles ache. If you're holding this, I'm already where I said I would never be, she began. Not gone. Just somewhere that needs my silence more than my sentences. A chair creaked on the recording. She laughed softly, without mirth. I didn't leave you for him, Ethan. I left the fear. I wish those were different things. A breath. Maybe someday you'll understand. The words were simple. Their chemistry was not. They reached into me and rearranged furniture. I leaned back and stared at a spot on the wall where the paint had bubbled and flattened again, as if the building had once tried to lift its own skin. Laura continued. Ryan doesn't love anyone. He collects. He collected me with attention he learned to mimic. When I realized what he was doing at work, how the shell accounts nested inside one another, names borrowed from dead neighborhoods, money washed in numbers that felt like poetry, I tried to pull away. That's when the threats began. Not loud, not crude, just the kind that knows where you file your life. Another pause. And you, my beautiful fury, you wanted to protect me by deciding for me. You called it care, I called it gravity. We weren't wrong about each other, just unkind to the parts that didn't match. I felt Coleman watch me without intruding. I kept listening, because not listening would be a smaller violence. I filed the report 2 months ago, Laura said, voice tight. I asked them to leave names blank, because the names kept changing. I thought if I staged my absence, I could breathe between the teeth. Fear made me clever. It didn't make me free. Paper rustled. The recorder caught the sound of her turning a page only she could see. If this reaches you, it means the machine woke up and decided to eat the mechanics. It means Ryan's tricks are called what they are. It means I have to go where my story isn't the point. A soft clink, glass against glass. Water? Whiskey? I wanted it to be water and knew it might not be. I keep remembering the July storm, she said. We stood at the back door and watched the street float. You put your hand on my hip, and the pressure was so exact I thought, this is how belief feels. Later, in the kitchen, I pulled you by the belt, and you said my name like a sentence with no period. We were better than our worst nights. That matters. Let it matter without letting it lie. Her breath braided with the room's small hums. If he tells you I wanted him, he's not wrong. Want is a trick mirror. It shows you a person shaped like your hunger. Sex was where I felt least afraid until it wasn't. I am sorry for the angle you had to see me from. I am not sorry for refusing to stay in it. A thud outside our interview room made the tape sharpen in my hands. Laura's voice softened. There's a folder labeled Last Room on the drive I sent the night before I left. Use it if you need to understand why the police will seem patient to the point of insult. It's bigger than us. It always was. But if you're listening, if you still need a map that isn't fear, then do one thing for me. Don't turn me into a lesson. Let me be a person who had to improvise. Silence held for 3 seconds, then 5. The tape clicked, abrupt and final. I set the recorder down with the care you give fragile bones. Coleman cleared his throat. There's corroboration, he said. Your brother's footprint is everywhere it shouldn't be. The karaoke bar owner remembers their Friday. The bartender remembers a man who tipped in cash from an envelope. The lease on Pine Street came from an account fed by a ghost company that routes through the same shell Ryan built for his employer's client retention program. He's good, just not good enough to be invisible to people who make it their church. You going to charge him with more? I asked, and hated the hunger in it. If the U.S. attorney likes the stitching. He folded his hands. This next bit isn't my badge speaking. You weren't wrong to see yourself in her fear. The part you control is what you do with that sight. I signed what they put in front of me and carried the dictaphone home like contraband hope. The house met me without hostility. It was tired, the way rooms get after hosting too much performance. I stood in the doorway for a full minute, letting my eyes relearn the light. On the kitchen counter, the slash of the R looked less like a letter and more like an incision ready to be sutured. I opened Laura's laptop and found the folder she'd named. Last Room held artifacts. Spreadsheets of transactions written in a language of zeros and decimal dust. Copies of emails from a burner Ryan thought untraceable. A photo of a whiteboard with a flowchart that could have been mistaken for plot structure if you didn't know what you were looking at. In the lower corner, Laura's handwriting labeled it. First betrayal. Under that, a paragraph in her clipped, journalist's hand. First betrayal isn't the person you kiss. It's the person you let define the terms of your safety. I did it with him. I did it with you. I'm relearning the word enough. I printed the note and pinned it to the corkboard above the desk, where once we kept travel plans and grocery lists, like a relic with a live wire running through it. Whenever the printer paused, the house seemed to listen. It would be easy to make Ryan the whole story. It would be easy to let Laura be red scarf and clever clues and the softness of a mouth that knew how to cut. It would be easy to take Coleman's tempered sympathy and season it into absolution. Easy is a word that doesn't belong here. I rinsed a glass. The water ran warm, then cold, then right. In the mirror over the sink, my face looked like someone I might be able to forgive later. I remembered her in that black dress. I remembered the way she'd press my wrist to the wall and breathe against my ear, the way my body would answer with blind, grateful heat. Desire had been our truce and our weapon. It had also been the place fear put on perfume. The rain began again, steady and domestic. I carried the dictaphone upstairs and set it on the bathroom counter beside the dead lipstick tube, its blunt red heart exposed. The mirror still wore the faintest ghost of her message, the oils refusing to vanish completely. Don't look for me. I imagined writing below it with the same lipstick, an answer in the same register, the same theater, but not yet. Not this chapter. Downstairs, I sat at the table and opened a fresh notebook. I wrote a single line in the middle of the first page, then closed the cover so I wouldn't see it and mistake the sentence for an ending. Outside, sirens braided with the rain and unbraided again. Somewhere across town, my brother was inventorying the inside of a cell, adding new columns to a ledger that would not balance. Somewhere else, behind a name she was borrowing, Laura was teaching her breath the shape of a quieter life. I was not absolved. I was not condemned. I was a man in a house learning the cost of listening late. The day tore itself into dusk with patient hands, and I let it, because sometimes the only faithful act is to stay and count the noises you used to ignore.